Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Deputy Prime Ministers, Leader of Opposition, Ministers, Assistant Ministers and Member of Parliament. I rise today in support of the coalition government's budget for financial year 2024-2025. It certainly is a people's budget, and I believe it is evidence of a government that has been working towards taking care of all its people. Mr. Speaker, I want to touch on a few points raised in the budget speech by the Honourable Minister of Finance because they are important to me personally as a parliamentarian but also to the ministry I work in. The first of these points is the need to rebuild trust in the government. Mr. Speaker, when I entered politics reluctantly, but I did so because in 2022 we were at a point where we could no longer trust the people who ruled us. The government and all its resources were devoted entirely to the personal agendas of two people. If you were the enemy of those two people, you were a target. If you did not matter to those two people, you got nothing. If we are not going to vote for those two people, you got nothing. Mr. Speaker, I saw with my own eyes the way the previous government wasted resources during the COVID crisis and the politicking and pettiness of leaders who refused to join hands with community organizations they did not like because they had criticized them. I was accused by the then economy minister of using the resources of my organization friend only to help supporters of one political party when we were reaching out to all at the request of their government officials. I wondered at that time why he did not use the resources of the government to reach out to those in need. Mr. Speaker, we are far from being a perfect government. We have been criticized for many things. There are many things we can improve. But I hope that our people at least believe that for all our faults, we are a government for all of our people. Yes. We have tried to right the wrongs of the past, to the Vatukola gold miners, to the FNPF pensioners. We do not do this for votes, Mr. Speaker. We do this because it is the right thing to do. Mr. Speaker, the cost of living is the people's biggest concern. We talk to the people, we read the opinion polls and the letters to the editor. We know people are struggling and we know that people find it hard to understand why we had to increase VAT. But I also understand that without the VAT increase, we could not pay for increased welfare allowances, we could not pay for better health care, and we could not bring down the government debt that stands in the way of the greater social spending that we need.
It didn't go down, it went up.
Mr. Speaker, on the cost of living issue, we can only control prices so far. As the Honourable Minister of Finance has said, we must focus on increasing incomes, so I welcome the increase in the minimum wage and the overdue increments for civil servants. Honourable Prime Minister earlier talked about the different services, different social protection mechanisms. Mr. Speaker, while our Honourable Minister will discuss the overall impact of the new budget and the ministry's plan for the new financial year, I want to draw attention to the work undertaken for the people living with disabilities, older people and street dwellers. Once again, Mr. Speaker, I want to return to the theme of trust in this government. These are not things which are done for votes, Mr. Speaker. These are things that are done because they are right things to do. Mr. Speaker, the disability-specific budget lines for our ministry are estimated at 31.9 million, an increase of 4.6 million from this financial year. Mr. Speaker, to ensure our government honours our commitment under the UN Convention, we continue to consult and engage with the different organisations representing people with disabilities. The Ministry would like to acknowledge the relevant specific disability budget lines sitting in 6 government ministries and looking forward to working with these ministries with organizations for persons with disabilities in implementing the much needed interventions for the inclusion and participation of people living with disabilities on an equal basis with others. The main target for our disability policy in 2024-2025 financial year include passing of a new national policy for persons with disabilities and consultations on the Marrakesh Treaty, which is a worldwide agreement to facilitate timely access to published works for persons who are blind or otherwise print material for those who are visually impaired. We want to strengthen our collaboration with the Government of Australia on pre-agreed activities with organizations for persons with disabilities and relevant government ministries in making schools and hospitals more accessible and creating advocacy on the meaningful inclusion of persons with disabilities. We also want to strengthen collaboration with the National Disaster Management Office in the areas of early warning inclusive systems and with Fiji Disabled People's Federation on the review of the Disaster Disability Toolkit, among others. Mr. Speaker, discussing about older persons, I want to briefly address the issue of inclusion, protection, and health and enabling environment for our older persons. According to the Fiji population census in 2017, more than 10% of Fijians were aged 60 years or more. So more than 90,000 people. Many of them face issues such as poor physical access, health, disability, abuse, and neglect. They need an advocacy and policy platform. So in 2012, the National Council of Older Persons Act was approved, and in 2013, the council was appointed. However, no resources were allocated to help with the functioning of the council. We are currently working on recruiting the relevant personnel to help in establishing the council to perform the roles and responsibilities already determined. We are also establishing district committees for older persons. These committees will create the inclusive platform and also champion the needs of older persons within the communities. This year, the ministry carried out 4 divisional consultations as well as the National General Assembly for older persons. The discussions were centered on inclusion, protection, health, and enabling environment for older persons. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to acknowledge the allocation of renovation budget for Vunirewa Bible School, which the Methodist Church of Fiji has kindly provided for government to use as the location for the much-needed rehabilitation center for the vulnerable children living on our streets. The shelter will enable the children to be re-socialized, to accepted norms, and receive much-needed interventions before they enter into skills training and reintegrated back with families and communities. The ministry is currently working with civil society, faith-based organizations, and relevant government ministries to help set up other facilities and programs to ensure that interventions for the vulnerable children are relevant and holistic. Mr. Speaker, finally, I want to speak about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. This is a project to which I'm personally deeply committed to. This budget supports the setup of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission Secretariat. We have taken the first step. We are not rushing this, Mr. Speaker. To do this well, we must listen to our people and also learn the lessons from other countries and communities who have been through this experience. We want the Commission to be a key foundation for the national unity and nation building that is so critical for all of our futures. And I want to thank the Leader of Opposition for acknowledging that. So, Mr. Speaker, this is why I have many reasons to support this budget. As the Honourable Minister of Finance himself has said, it is not flashy, it's not laden with gimmicks. It is a solid and honest budget that begins the long-term and often unseen work that must be done to help progress us as a people, as of different communities and as one nation. I fully support and commend the budget for financial year 2024-2025. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir.